lower, and as a result we're even going to see some sleet and snow showers to low levels across the north of Scotland, but certainly snow accumulating over the West Highlands above 200 metres throughout Wednesday itself. Cloud and rain sinks south across England and Wales, with sunny spells following, and the rain tends to peter out by the afternoon as well. 12 Celsius in the south, feeling cold in the wind further north.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before. It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News. No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton tonight. As the BBC and media establishment Ramonas continue their campaign to depose the PM who delivered Brexit, I'll explain why cancel culture pervading our politics is dangerous for democracy in my digest. Then I'll get my superstar panel's verdict. Tonight, Daily Express columnist Carol Malone, senior reporter at the iNewspaper Benjamin Butterworth, and social commentator Esther Kraku. As the Queen controversially confirms that Camilla will be Queen Consort when Charles becomes king. Is that a betrayal to Princess Diana? Royal expert Ingrid Seward reveals that Diana told her personally that her divorce wasn't Camilla's fault, but Diana loyalist Paul Burrell, he's her former butler of course, says this bitter pill is a tactical move before Harry blows up his stepmother's reputation in a new tell-all book. They'll go head-to-head in the clash at 9:20. Spotify again stood firmly behind Joe Rogan as the malicious media onslaught forced him into another apology for using racist language in old podcasts.
My sincere and humble apologies. I wish there was more that I could say, but all of this is just me talking from the bottom of my heart.
So why is the establishment so desperate to cancel Rogan? GB News star Neil Oliver is tonight's outsider as he weighs in on a critical moment in the fight for free speech at 9:45. As dodgy Dr. Tedros from the World Health Organization cozies up to China by attending the Winter Olympics, why is the world letting them get away with unleashing COVID on us? Former House of Lords peer and top author Matt Ridley joins me at 10:20 to discuss the sporting smokescreen taking place in Beijing. As the number of COVID patients in ICU plummets thanks to the Omicron pussycat, the attention of the NHS now must turn to its behemoth backlog. But how do we solve the 6 million strong waiting list? Our positive Professor Carol Sikora gives his expert view at 9:30. They've already scored huge victories over vaccine passports and the cruel no jab, no job NHS mandates. But the Together declaration aren't finished yet. Their co-founder Alan Miller is uncancelled at 10:40 to tell me what the freedom fighters are challenging next. As Boris allies blame Carrie for much of the chaos inside number 10, is criticism of her slut-shaming. And is Jimmy Carr right that comedy is dying at the hands of cancel culture after a furious backlash to his dark Netflix joke about the travelling community? Plus, should Thandiwe Newton feel obliged to apologise for not representing dark-skinned women? It's proving such a talking point that fellow thespian Lawrence Fox also felt the need to apologise.
I'm sorry that I'm the one chosen. My mama looks like you.
I just want to apologise for every other white-skinned actor.
Much more of that in the media buzz, where we'll also get a first look at the newspaper front pages hot off the press, and I'll coronate a brand new Greatest Britain and Union Jackass just before the end of the show. This is Dan Wootton Tonight. Let's go. Just one thing first, though. I regularly scoff when the BBC pleads poverty, despite charging every citizen £159 a year simply to watch television. More proof this weekend that the corporation is a bloated monolith with more money than sense. It has emerged that the Labour MP Jess Phillips was paid a whopping £15,000 to host a single edition of the tired far-left comedy panel show Have I Got News For You in December. I repeat, £15,000 for a few hours' work reading out jokes written for her. Now, I'm sure Ms. Phillips, who is a self-described staunch socialist, would have donated that fee to charity, given she already gets paid £81,932 as an MP. And given Labour MPs, remember this, just a few weeks ago, so up in arms about Tories taking on second jobs. So I tweeted to ask Ms. Phillips, and unsurprisingly, there's been radio silence from her end. The usual BBC sycophants have argued that Have I Got News For You is made by an independent production company, but that's semantics, because the BBC still pays them taxpayers' money to make the show, which they then shell out in £15,000 chunks to secure A-list guest hosts like a Labour backbench MP. Jess Phillips told the Mail on Sunday, actually, obviously, I think it's a lot of money. I believe it's the standard fee. I didn't negotiate it. The shoot is about 3 hours, but as a presenter, you were there all day, running through, rehearsing the auto cue. I'm not sure this was because I'm a novice or is standard. The BBC is out of control. This is proof it must be reined in. My superstar panel coming up in just a moment. Let's take a look at them. Carol Malone is here tonight, Daily Express columnist. So too, senior reporter at the newspaper Benjamin Butterworth, and the social commentator Esther Kraku. But before I get to them, it's the news at 9 with Polly Middlehurst.
Good evening. Your top stories tonight. The Prime Minister says the government is setting tough targets to reduce the number of patients currently on NHS waiting lists in England. It follows reports that the Treasury had refused to sign off on the so-called COVID recovery plan without firmer targets. The Prime Minister insists, though, Number 10 and the Treasury are working together to tackle the patient backlog.
What we're doing is working together across the whole of government to fix the COVID backlogs, which, believe me, is a massive priority for us, for everybody in the country.
Prime Minister speaking earlier. Well, he's coming under increasing pressure tonight to withdraw his suggestion that Sir Keir Starmer failed to prosecute Jimmy Savile when he was Director of Public Prosecutions. It's because after the Labour leader was mobbed today by protesters outside Parliament, officers had to escort Sir Keir Starmer through a crowd and bundle him into a police car after the group of demonstrators accused him of protecting paedophiles. It's understood there were 2 arrests. The Conservative MP David Davis told GB News the Prime Minister must retract the comments and apologise. Boris Johnson has tweeted the abuse aimed at Sir Keir is absolutely disgraceful. The Defence Secretary Ben Wallace has announced the UK sending an additional 350 British soldiers to Poland amid continued tensions between Russia and Ukraine. Meanwhile, the French President Emmanuel Macron has met with the Russian President Vladimir Putin in Moscow. Macron stressed that Europe and Russia need to find a new way to end the standoff over Ukraine. A letter of confession from a serial killer, Levi Belfield, admitting to the murders of mother and daughter Lynn and Megan Russell, has yet to be received by the Criminal Cases Review Commission. The Commission has told GBNews the document has so far not yet been passed on by the legal team representing Michael Stone, who served 25 years in prison for the murders. Stone has always protested his innocence. His lawyer revealed that Levi Belfield had sent him the letter claiming to have committed the murders in Kent in 1996. 3 patients paralysed after spinal cord injuries have been able to walk, cycle and swim once again using a nerve stimulation device. They were all able to take their first steps after neurosurgeons attached an electrical implant to their spines, controlled using a touchscreen tablet. Swiss researchers hope to start a new trial of about 100 patients next year. On TV, online and on your radio via DAB+. You're with GB News. Now it's time for Tonight and Dan Wootton.
Boris Johnson's demise as Prime Minister has been greatly exaggerated. Sure, he remains on political death row. Absolutely, he's made major mistakes, especially in regards to his lockdown policies throughout the pandemic and the Partygate mess and high-tax, big state approach that has followed. But the BBC and the media establishment have become convinced they can depose prime ministers at will. And it's time for viewers, for voters, and most importantly for Tory MPs, to remind them that they can't. It's possible to be furious, perhaps even incandescent with rage with a PM, and certainly deeply let down, without them having to get the sack. That sort of cancel culture is bad for democracy. I watched as it happened in Australia, where there were 5 prime ministers in 5 years, and only Scott Morrison will manage to finish a term. Between 2013 and 2018, a craven media helped finish off Julia Gillard, Kevin Rudd, Malcolm Turnbull and Tony Abbott. Now the UK could fall into the same trap, driven by an emboldened media that believes if they focus on one story incessantly over a period of 2 months, as they have with Partygate, ignoring lots of important news, and then help to lead to really diminished poll results, they will help force regime change. I believe that sets a dangerous precedent that could see us head into Aussie territory, especially given David Cameron and Theresa May were both finished off by Brexit. By the way, many legends from the BBC's past believe the corporation is heading down this anti-democratic path. Take, I would say, the country's, or certainly one of the top 3 best ever TV executives in this country, Michael Grade, a former BBC chairman, now applying to run the broadcasting regulator Ofcom, who has slammed the Beeb as aggressive, macho and disrespectful towards the government. In a fascinating interview with the Daily Telegraph at the weekend, Grade said, "What I don't like is the tone. Take the BBC's coverage of the current political crisis. It's the lead story. Of course, I'm not questioning their news values, but the tone is too aggressive. It's so gleeful and disrespectful. Are you lying to the British public?" It makes them sound as if they've made up their minds, which I don't think they have. But it's, we've got a story, we're going to nail this bastard. Grade added, not one journalist has asked any of the people queuing up to bash Boris, would you like to go on the record and say whether you've obeyed all the COVID rules throughout? They never put it in context. A lot of the main critics of Boris are disappointed and disaffected people that were in the cabinet and aren't now. Grade has summed it up perfectly. The BBC has treated Partygate as a golden opportunity to depose the man who they despise for delivering Brexit, and are now even more furious with him because, of course, he wants to clip the Beeb's wings. I repeat that I believe Boris Johnson has made many fundamental mistakes, but he must be given an opportunity to turn things around, especially given he was elected with this massive personal mandate in an 80-seat landslide just 2 years ago. And by the way, For those thinking the disloyal Chancellor Rishi Sunak is the answer, well, I'm becoming increasingly worried about that. The Sunday Times reported at the weekend that Team Sunak is already plotting and is considering the pro-lockdown, pro-vaccine mandate former Health Secretary Jeremy Hunt, who, let's not forget, completely failed to prepare the UK for a global pandemic, as a potential Deputy Prime Minister. No thanks, Rishi. The PM is going through with his promised plans to dramatically restructure Number 10 Downing Street. The new policy chief, Andrew Griffiths, wrote in an article for a Conservative Home today. You would not know it from the media headlines, but families want to hear about our plans to grow employment, tackle the NHS backlog, control our borders, make their streets safer, bring down the cost of living, and return rapidly to the point when we can cut taxes to keep everyone more of their own money, all policies that are rooted in strong conservative values. If only the BBC and the rest of the Boris-bashing media had a bit more time to focus on those issues. But to respond now, my superstar panel, the Daily Express columnist Carol Malone, senior reporter at the newspaper Benjamin Butterworth, and the social commentator Esther Krakow. Esther, your view on this?
I think you summed it up perfectly. Look, I read Peter Hitchens' article for the Daily Mail, and far be it from him to be a Boris supporter, but I think he summed it up perfectly, because if we let the mainstream media, excuse me, bully someone like Boris out of office, can you imagine Keir Starmer as Prime Minister? We would actually think that these were the best years of Great Britain, and that's a horrible thing. I'm not a fan of Boris. I think as a Conservative, he's an embarrassment. I'm so embarrassed to be a Conservative now in the country, but I think the options are so abysmal that we should really check our media. And this is a conversation that we've never had, actually checking the people that are feeding us information. These are the same people that are pushing to make disinformation illegal, but they're happy to put their own slant on our news and influence our views without any checks of their own. So I think, you summed it up perfectly there.
Carol Malone, it's fascinating hearing Michael Gray talk like that, right? I mean, this is not a man who dislikes the BBC. He was the chairman of the BBC, but he's noticed the change, Carol.
And what he's got absolutely right when he said it was the tone. And, we saw just last week Emily Maitlis had to apologise because she put she put something out on Twitter about having a go at the government. We know in 2020 she breached impartiality rules with that terrible attack on Dominic Cummings. Remember? She then, very shortly after, Rod Liddle was found there was a complaint against her for sneering and bullying interview with him. And this was typical of her and of the BBC's interviewing of people who supported Leave. So this is nothing new for them, this sneering, this bullying, whatever. And did you know, this is just a really interesting thing that I was just doing some research on this today. 10 out of 14 of Ofcom's, the regulator's content board, are people who used to work for the BBC. And out of 418 complaints referred, one was investigated. So this is why it has carte blanche to do and say whatever it feels like doing, because they know there's no comeback, because everyone who used to work there is on the Ofcom. So no wonder Michael Gray wants to get on the Ofcom board. He wants to be in charge of it. Hopefully he would change things. But people like Maitlis and all those people, they are the people who are bringing the reputation of the BBC, blowing out of the water its supposed impartiality.
There are no checks. That's the problem.
Because it's clear. No checks. She's not impartial. It's clear that a lot of the people... they were putting out misinformation about COVID. They were focusing on the NHS and literally putting out misinformation. And that... It's a state broadcaster that no longer is representative of the state.
And Benjamin, I think what's so terrible about what's happened with the hard left, Ms Maitlis, is that she's actually completely undermined what the new Director General, Tim Davies, said when he arrived. Because he said, it didn't matter how famous you were, Benjamin. It didn't matter if you were a Lineker, if you were a Maitlis. We are going to take action against you if you continue to defy our impartiality rules. Well, she ignored him. She snared at him in an interview, I think, with her mates at Tatler magazine or somewhere like that. And she's having to apologise time and again, but no disciplinary action's being taken. Benjamin, even from a left-wing perspective, do you concede the BBC are completely out of control?
No, I don't. And I mean, the absurdity of you trying to claim that the BBC is wanting to depose the Prime Minister when polls say that just shy of 70% of people in this country want Boris Johnson to resign. So you are the person that is stopping the will of the people. You are the media elite, not the BBC.
Ben, that's this week, 70%.
No,
but that doesn't warrant the behaviour for the last year of the BBC.
Answer the question of why, when the overwhelming majority of the public are furious at what's happened and think Boris Johnson's not deserving of the job he's in.
Maybe because they don't know anything else about policy.
I don't think it's the job of any media organisation to depose a democratic...
Especially not the state
broadcaster. And that's not what the BBC is doing. The BBC is reporting the scandals that have happened, that have been leaked for 2 months, and is reflecting...
So Michael Grade was wrong.
And is reflecting the mood of the country.
Michael Grade was wrong, was he?
Can I just
Michael
ask?
Grade was wrong.
I'm curious, what would, because I want to know where you draw the line, because I can respect that you don't think that you think the BBC is just reporting on what's happening and this is just, they're reflecting the public view on Boris. What do you think the BBC would have to do to overstep their boundaries in terms of actually being a neutral state broadcaster as opposed to sort of
a campaign
moving into just opinion?
Well, I mean, it's an incredibly vague question, really.
But that's the point. You don't have a limit as to where you would say, actually, no, the BBC has overstepped.
But Dan is right.
But the BBC is impartial.
When someone like Makers is found to have breached impartiality rules, how come there is no discipline? She's making her bosses look and feel stupid. You know, that Tim Davies, the new boss, actually said he wouldn't tolerate this and get away. He's tolerating it.
But he has now, Carol.
And she knows she can get away with that apology she put out last week on Twitter. She said it was really sneering and it was taking the mick. She said, I apologise for all the hurt I've caused. And she was talking about saying the government was rubbish. That was taking the mickey. And she can do that because she's getting away with it.
I mean, she was mocking the apology that Boris Johnson had given that week, where he said, sorry, not sorry about Partygate.
That's not her job.
That's not her job.
To be a
you literally just proved up
Exactly.
Did you not understand? She was mocking the Prime Minister. She is a BBC presenter who we know not only despises this Prime Minister, she despises the Tory party, she despises Brexit, she believes people who voted to leave the European Union are racist, and we pay for... Just like Benjamin, by the way, we pay £15,000 for Jess Phillips to go and present one episode of Have I Got News For You. I cannot believe that even from a left-wing perspective, you cannot concede that the BBC has to reform quickly.
Look, your assessment of people at the BBC and Emily Maitlis is complete nonsense. And, of course, you know, you sit there on behalf of your friend in Boris's camp and you'll defend
you
them.
can't
but
say
the
that.
public don't
How is
agree
it
with
nonsense? How is it nonsense? She breached impartiality rules in 2020.
But she doesn't think Brexit voters are racist. You've no evidence of that.
The interview with Rod Little.
You asked Rod Little what they think.
Rod Little got fired from the BBC for not being impartial.
I'm sorry, you cannot say that the BBC are not impartial if you don't have any limits on them. I'm sorry, you cannot say the BBC are not impartial if there are no benchmarks in your mind as to where they will overstep their boundaries. You can't say that.
Let me be clear.
Maitlis knows full well this is the year that the BBC's charter is going to be renegotiated, looked at, and yet she's still doing this rubbish. She's still putting the corporation in danger with
Let me be clear. I don't think Emily Maitlis is the best example in the BBC at all. I think there have been a couple of times where she's gone too far. Do I think that the Jess Phillips £15,000, my God, that's a lot of money. That must be almost as much as you get paid to present one show.
Taxpayers' money, a lot of it.
But, you know, I think the idea that there is widespread disregard among the thousands of BBC staff is totally unfair.
Jess Phillips would have been thanking all of her lucky stars when her agent made that call, because Jess Phillips would have hosted Have I Got News For You for 500 quid. The BBC is a wasteful organisation, that's one point, but the BBC is also at the moment trying to depose the Prime Minister, and I am going to stand up against it. Carol Malone, Benjamin Butterworth, Hester Kraku, my superstar panel, thank you so much. They are here all night. But still to come, as the number of COVID patients in ICU plummets, the NHS must now tackle its 6 million strong waiting list. Our Potter Professor Carol Sikora is here shortly to give his expert take on what needs to be done to get patients treated again. But first, as the Queen controversially confirms that Camilla will be Queen Consort when Charles is on the throne, is she the right choice to secure the monarchy's future, or is this a betrayal to the late Princess Diana? Royal expert Ingrid Stewart reveals that Diana told her personally that her divorce wasn't Camilla's fault, but Paul Burrell, a Diana loyalist, her former butler, says this bitter pill is just a tactical move before Prince Harry blows up his stepmother's reputation in a new tell-all book. They'll go head-to-head in the clash next, but of course, your opinion matters most to me. Have a feeling you're going to disagree with me on this one, but look, I want to hear it. Dan at gbnews.uk. Are you keen on this whole idea of Queen Camilla? Let me tell you right from the outset, it makes me feel deeply uncomfortable. You can tweet me using the handle at GBNews, and we also have a poll running there right now as well. Back in 2.
Hello again. Cloudy skies overnight will bring outbreaks of rain to Scotland, Northern Ireland and Northern England and act as a blanket for much of the country, particularly in the south, where it will be a mild night. A few cloud breaks are possible for central and southern parts of the UK, but even here, enough of a breeze to keep things stirred up and mild. Heavy rain pushes south across Scotland, arriving into southern Scotland, Northern Ireland and Northern England by dawn. 7 to 10 Celsius for much of England, Wales, central and southern Scotland, Northern Ireland, but for the north of Scotland, 2 to 5 Celsius. Colder here because the front has moved south, and colder, brighter weather follows for Central Belt northwards. And really through Tuesday, we're going to see further blustery showers for much of northern and western Scotland, those showers falling as snow above 300 or 400 metres. But for Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, Northern England, it stays cloudy with some light outbreaks of rain on and off throughout the day. Further south again, dry with even some sunshine for the Midlands, East Anglia, southern counties of England, South Wales, 12 to 14 Celsius in places here. Staying breezy and cloudy across much of England and Wales overnight, then into the start of Wednesday. And as a result, it's going to be mild. Outbreaks of rain pushing through Wales into the Midlands. And to the north, well, clearer spells for northern England, for Scotland and Northern Ireland, but further blustery showers. And as we go through Wednesday, we're going to drag cold air in across the northern half of the UK from the west-northwest. The snow line then starts to sink lower, and as a result, we're even going to see some sleet and snow showers to low levels across the north of Scotland, but certainly snow accumulating over the West Highlands above 200 metres throughout Wednesday itself. Cloud and rain sinks south across England and Wales, with sunny spells following, and the rain tends to peter out by the afternoon as well. 12 Celsius in the south, feeling cold in the wind further north.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News. Neil Oliver and Carol Sikora are on the way, but it's time now for the clash. The Queen dropped a royal bombshell this weekend in her Platinum Jubilee message, ending decades of speculation by publicly declaring her wish for Camilla to become Queen Consort when Charles ascends the throne. So far, I've been the only person in the media to in any way question this decision. While I of course acknowledge the Queen's wishes and believe her feelings should be respected, I cannot stop thinking about the anguish such a move would have brought to Princess Diana. The very thought horrified her. And when accepting the wedding of Prince Charles and Camilla, we, the public, were promised this would never happen. We were told Camilla would be princess consort. So as I wrote in my Mail Online column, I have been acutely aware of the disconnect between the establishment and media elite, which has long accepted Camilla, and a significant section of ordinary Brits who still can't bring themselves to forget the pain wrought on a young Diana. The stats, by the way, back me up. Only 14% of respondents to a YouGov poll in November said Camilla should be Queen. But has Her Majesty's approval changed your view? Are you happy for Camilla to become Queen Consort? There's really divided opinions over the past 24 hours, so I'm prepared for you to come for me tonight, believe me. And I'm not saying Camilla is a bad person, by the way, but I'm just being honest with my feelings on this. dan@gbnews.uk is my email address. You can vote in our Twitter poll right now at GB News. Both sides of the argument, of course, because this is GB News. So joining me now, Princess Diana's former butler, Paul Burrell, and Editor-in-Chief of Majesty magazine, Ingrid Seward. So, Ingrid, let me start with you. You say that Princess Diana actually told you personally before her death that she didn't blame Camilla for what happened.
She did tell me that. And actually, Paul was there because Paul let me in to Kensington Palace. It's the first time. Hello, Paul. Nice. Hello. First time I'd met Paul. And she did. I mean, maybe Paul can throw some light on this. I promise you, Dan, she told me that. And I didn't quite get it. We were talking about Prince Charles. She obviously still loved him in her way. We were laughing about that. Of course, at this time, unbeknownst to me, she was deeply involved with Hasnat Khan, and I think she just met Dodi. But she actually said to me, I don't blame Camilla. She said, I blame the people around Charles. And I thought about this so much. I mean, I just couldn't quite work it out. And I thought that she means that she blames the courtiers at the palace for really ruining her marriage, which is almost in a way what her younger son Harry is saying. It's the whole royal roadshow that he can't deal with, not the individuals. So maybe Paul can throw some light on this. Maybe she also said the same thing to her.
Yeah, Paul, well,
sorry, I beg your pardon.
Ingrid, it's good to see you.
Hi.
I think this is a PR masterstroke by the suits within the palace. Her Majesty's wishes, of course, we are subjects of the Queen. You know where my loyalties lie with the Queen and with the Princess. And I think by her saying this, we are taking more notice of it. Had Prince Charles said this at the beginning of his reign, that might be a totally different question. So she's diffused this situation by coming out with the statement and saying, well, this is my wish, knowing that her son behind the scenes has actually said to her, Mummy, this is what I want. And if you don't do it, I'm going to do it when I'm king. So the Queen has used her good grace, her 70 years goodwill, to appeal to her subjects to say, this is a smooth transition for the monarchy, and this is what I want. I don't want any fuss, I don't want any bother when I die. I want my line to continue. It's remarkable, really, when you think about it, this arc of transition between a woman being pelted by bread rolls in a car park to being queen in waiting. It's quite extraordinary.
It is extraordinary, Paul, but you know, because we've discussed this a lot in the past, you know that there is a large section of the public. Now, I'm not saying, Paul, it's the majority anymore. I would probably estimate it's around 30% of Brits, but maybe it's a little bit less. But I'm in that group. And we feel like while we don't take anything out personally on Camilla, the royal family needs to respect Princess Diana's wishes. And one of the ways that they did that was by pledging to us that Camilla would become princess consort when Prince Charles acceded to the throne rather than queen consort. We were told that, and that's one of the reasons why we accepted the wedding. So can you understand why there is this deep unease, Paul, amongst certain...
I do, because I feel so sad for those millions of devoted Diana supporters around the world who feel that they've been let down. They have long memories. We're talking about an older age group now, and we're not talking about people under 30. Those people were told by the palace in 2005 that Camilla would be styled princess consort to protect the memory of Diana. Now that has changed. I mean, Charles obviously insisted.
But Paul, that wasn't something that the Queen said. It was something that Clarence House said, but it wasn't actually an official edict from the Queen. And what I remember Prince Philip saying, and you probably remember this too, Paul, saying to Diana, it's not about the individual. This is not a popularity contest. It's about working for the monarchy and the institution of the monarchy.
This announcement would not have been made if Prince Philip was alive.
Well, Camilla, she's the wife of, she's going to be the wife of a king. Therefore, she is a queen. End of conversation.
But Ingrid, this announcement probably wouldn't have been made if Prince Philip was alive. I mean, by all accounts, he remained quite sceptical about the concept of Camilla as queen consort.
Well, Prince Philip did write a letter to Princess Diana. I saw it personally, and the letter read, "Mama and I cannot understand for the life of us why Charles would choose Camilla over you." Prince Philip's words. And also,
but that was a long time ago, a long time ago, over 25 years ago.
You also know that the wife of a king is not always a queen. Caroline of Brunswick was never a queen. So it could have been styled as princess consort. It could have been. But Charles's wish is that his wife will be crowned beside him in Westminster Abbey as queen.
Paul, what about this point that Ingrid makes, though, that before her death,
in the marriage,
Diana had forgiven Camilla to an extent? She didn't blame Camilla. Is that what Diana said to you, Paul?
This is a separate issue. This is about the marriage. It's not about the accession to the throne. Yes, Ingrid is quite right. That Diana didn't blame Camilla for the breakup. She blamed Charles, because Charles had every... he could have stopped this affair at any one moment, and he could have pulled away from Camilla, but he didn't. He pursued her as much as Camilla pursued him. So I think the blame was 50-50 personally, but Diana did not bear any grudge against Camilla. She thought, well, she's welcome to a bad lot. And in fact, the princess would say to me that she never thought her husband would be king. She said, he's not fit to be king, so I don't think he's going to be king. He'll never get there. So it wasn't an issue for the princess whether Camilla would be queen, because she didn't think Prince Charles would be king.
Yes, and of course, in the Panorama interview, which is, of course, much questioned these days, she did make a similar point. Paul, I want to talk about two men who, of course, I know you still deeply care about, Princes William and Harry. By all accounts, Paul, they've probably reacted in very different ways to this announcement. The view behind the scenes within the royal family is that William has accepted it, whereas Prince Harry probably remains far more emotional about Camilla. Now, you think he's going to throw some real nasty words towards Camilla in this autobiography coming up?
I do. As you're right in saying, William is stoic. He's on the path to monarchy. He knows the rules. He's abiding by the rules. He's getting on with the job. Harry isn't a member of the royal family. He's out in Los Angeles. He's stewing right now. He's thinking, what the hell is going on? I've got a lot to say about this subject, because this is the woman who stepped into my mother's shoes before she died. And when she did die, it caused me great grief. And it caused him to have mental issues, of course, mental illness, and he's gone on to talk about that. So Harry is suffering because of all of this, and I can't believe for a minute that he agrees with it. And I think we are going to hear about it later. I think he's keeping his powder dry for the time being. And I think we will be hearing much more from the other side of the pond about this issue, about this woman becoming queen.
Ingrid Stewart, I guess this is why you would say it was so important that the Queen did this before the publication of the book, because I guess at the very least it provides a bit of security for Camilla.
I'm not sure that I agree. I agree with Paul on most things, but I don't think I'm not sure that Harry will attack Camilla, because what would be the point? It would just sound unpleasant and nasty.
Well, he seems to attack everyone else. He's attacked his dad.
He's thrown everyone else.
I think, yes, attack your dad, but I just cannot see what he has to gain from it. I don't think it's going to make more people buy the book. I think he will rein himself. I think he will keep those feelings. Obviously, I think you're right, Paul, about his feelings, but I don't see the point in him expressing them in words. They'll always be there. You know, when Camilla becomes queen, there will be Harry's book, basically slagging her off. I don't think there's any point. And I think if he's not intelligent enough to see that, I think Meghan is. And I just don't think he'll do it.
Paul, final word to you. Yes. Am I correct in saying you still believe it would be the best thing for the monarchy if the Crown were to skip Prince Charles and Prince William was to follow the Queen?
Well, personally, my mission is to see Diana's son on the throne. I would like to see King William and Queen Kate. That can't be because the Constitution says that the next monarch has to be Prince Charles. The only consolation is they'll be there for a short time, because long live the Queen. God bless her. May she live to be 110.
Yes.
And by that time, Charles and Camilla will be far too old to get up the steps to the throne. So,
well, no, people mock me for it, Paul, but I say, look, the Queen, she's got to go on for decades, because right now, just going to be honest, I've heard Ingrid's points, I understand them. I still feel very uneasy about the idea of a King Charles and a Queen Camilla. But that was Princess Diana's former butler, Paul Burrell, and editor-in-chief of Majesty magazine, Ingrid Stewart. Thank you so much. So, are you happy for Camilla to become Queen Consort? Ben on Twitter says, absolutely. She's carried out her duties with good grace and does a lot of good work. It's her entitlement, and now with Her Majesty's endorsement, there's absolutely no reason why she shouldn't. Alex, via email, says Camilla fully deserves the title, and Queen Consort is the only realistic title for wife of the king. To those who compare her to Diana, Camilla was not responsible for Charles's terrible decision to marry a person he had no feelings for. Therefore, we should all support her. But Elizabeth on Twitter says definitely not. I just don't respect Charles or Camilla. Roll on William's reign. And your verdict is now in. So you're not with me on this one, but I have to say it is a divided vote all the same. 68% of you are happy for Camilla to become Queen Consort, while 32% of you are not. I will say I do respect the Queen on this. I have accepted it, but I'm not going to lie and say it fills me with joy. Coming up, as Spotify stand firm against the cancel culture vultures circling around Joe Rogan, why is the establishment so desperate to end his career? GBNews star Neil Oliver thinks we have reached a pivotal moment in the fight for free speech, and he takes a stand in The Outsider shortly. But first, as the NHS waiting list surpasses 6 million and waiting times for cancer treatment reach dangerous levels, what's the best way to alleviate the huge backlog? Our positive Professor Carol Sikora is the former head of the cancer program at the World Health Organization, and he gives his very important expert view straight after the break.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before. Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News. Neil Oliver and Matt Ridley on the way, but now time for the Positive Professor with Carol Sikora. The good news this week is that the numbers of ICU admissions due to COVID has fallen dramatically as Omicron proves to be the pussycat I always knew it was. Figures from the Intensive Care National Audit and Research Centre revealed that COVID-related admissions in England, Wales and Northern Ireland fell to as little as 2 in one day last month and are expected to be in the region of 22 to 30 a day for the rest of January. But the bad news is that the vital plan to tackle the huge backlog of patients on NHS waiting lists was today delayed by the Health Secretary Sajid Javid, who was forced to deny reports Rishi Sunak put a stop to any announcement.
What we're doing is working together across the whole of government to fix the COVID backlogs, which, believe me, is a massive priority for us, for everybody in the country. And,
no doubt about the Chancellor, isn't it?
Absolutely not. And what I would say is that it's thanks to the investment that we're able to put in, thanks to the sound management of the economy, everything that we did, if you think about it, all the looking after business throughout the pandemic, that's enabled our economy to bounce back.
But meanwhile, the growing cancer care crisis explodes, with the number of people diagnosed with cancer who have to wait longer than a month for treatment already at a record high. So, Carol, you're of course a former chief of the cancer program at the World Health Organization. What's your take on this delay today?
I think, at least people are paying attention to it. The media are paying attention, the opposition are paying attention. Wes Streeting's had cancer himself, he's the Labour spokesman. And of course, the government are paying attention. If you're a logistician, what you would do is say, what are the blocks and how can we unblock them? And the block is getting cancer diagnosed. That's the first thing, getting the scans, getting the biopsies where you take a piece of tissue. And so you just need to look at all the slots for doing those things and work out how you can double them immediately. No time to build places, no time to buy equipment. We have to use what we've got. We have to use it 24/7 if necessary. We have to persuade people and perhaps pay them more to come in at weekends, to come in late at night, to work till midnight at least, to clear the backlog. And that's the only way we can solve this. We did it with vaccines. Let's do it for cancer, for goodness sake.
Well, of course we should. And Carol, isn't the big point here that there's an opportunity to do that now that Omicron is proving to be a non-event? I mean, I'm going to come to Sage and all of that a lot later in the week because all of their doomsday predictions have been proven to be completely wrong. The ICUs are not full of folk with Omicron and with COVID anymore. So this is great news, isn't it? Don't we need to move the entire focus of the NHS away from COVID towards illnesses like cancer?
completely. And, we were talking before Christmas, and we had all these prophets of doom from the NHS Confederation, from the BMA, saying, we've got to stop, we've got to bring back lockdown to prevent the NHS being overwhelmed. It wasn't overwhelmed. And,
Not even
we've just
close.
got to get back to business as normal.
Indeed. What do you make of this back and forth, Carol, between the Health Secretary Sajid Javid and Rishi Sunak, the Chancellor, who isn't apparently prepared to sign off all the money yet that he needs? I mean, it's not good, is it, right now, for there to be any sort of political stoush going on? Surely there has to be a united front in order to deal with the NHS backlog.
A real united front. There wasn't one for the vaccine programme. So there was a united front for the vaccine programme and for the disastrous test and trace programme. They poured billions into both of those. The vaccine, sensibly, the test and trace, 43 billion. And not much to show for it at the end. We've got to do something for cancer. And the trouble is, we haven't got time to wait around. The cohort of patients that are being diagnosed today need to get diagnosed and onto treatment quickly. And that means we haven't got time to play party political games or infighting within different government departments. We have to move forward with strong leadership to push it through.
Do you know what, Carol? It's just so frustrating to me, this entire situation, because you predicted it. I mean, I remember asking Boris Johnson at one of those 5 p.m. press conferences in 2020. It must have been about April or May 2020, Carol, during that first lockdown, where you were already predicting a cancer crisis because of the way folk were being turned away from the NHS. And the Prime Minister assured me that no one would miss out on life-saving cancer treatment. Well, I'm sorry, that hasn't proved to be the case. And I think if there's one lesson we learn from this, surely it's that we never shut the health service down to other illnesses simply to deal with a virus ever again in the future. That was the big mistake.
Absolutely right. I nearly fell off my chair when you mentioned my name to the Prime Minister, but
he needed to know about you.
We were both right. And there was no plan, and it was sort of ignored. But to any oncologist, you could see what was going to happen, the way things were drifting throughout the whole of 2020 and much of 21. That's 2 years of cancer patients that have been seriously disadvantaged. We owe it to the current generation of cancer patients to move quickly on this, put away all the political issues and just get the logistics sorted out. There's enough good people in the NHS to sort it out. Use the private sector, get people in at weekends. Let's just clear the backlog.
Well, look, Carol, I hope they consult you because you know what needs to be done. And if the government's listening, if the NHS bosses are listening, pick up the phone to this man because we have to sort out this coming cancer crisis, which Carol Sikora predicted right at the start of 2020. Carol, our positive professor, thank you so much. We'll speak again next week. But coming up, as Boris allies blame Carrie for much of the chaos inside Number 10, is criticism of her sexist? My Superstar panel will debate that, and you'll get a first look at tomorrow's front pages as the media buzz kicks off straight after 10. But next, Spotify again stood firm behind Joe Rogan as the malicious media onslaught continued. But why is the establishment so desperate to cancel him? I wonder. GB News star Neil Oliver sounds off on this latest fight for free speech in The Outsider straight after the break.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News. The first look at tomorrow's newspaper front page is coming up, but before that, Neil Oliver is tonight's outsider. And Spotify has had to face the music following the quiet deletion of over 100 episodes of its #1 podcast, The Joe Rogan Experience, after racist language was found. Rogan, who has come under fire from the despicable cancel culture mob for challenging the COVID orthodoxy, apologised to fans and said it was the most regretful and shameful thing he's ever had to talk about.
I'm making this video to talk about the most regretful and shameful thing that I've ever had to talk about publicly. Now, I know that to most people, there's no context where a white person is ever allowed to say that word, never mind publicly on a podcast. And I agree with that now. I never used it to be racist because I'm not racist. My sincere and humble apologies. I wish there was more that I could say. Hopefully, at least some of you will accept this and understand where I'm coming from.
But Spotify is continuing to back Rogan, despite the establishment seeming more desperate than ever to deplatform him. In a memo to staff, the streaming platform's under fire chief executive Daniel Ek said, "I do not believe that silencing Joe is the answer. We should have clear lines around content and take action when they are crossed, but cancelling voices is a slippery slope. Looking at the issue more broadly, it's critical thinking and open debate that powers real and necessary progress." Neil Oliver, the establishment are literally on a mission to cancel Joe Rogan, aren't they? I wonder why, Neil. Why are they so afraid of this man?
Well, I think just one Joe Rogan is one too many for the legacy media, for the relic media, for the official narrative. The official narrative around COVID, it has to be protected at all costs. It has been built and it's been being driven for a couple of years. And someone like Joe Rogan has the power to challenge it. He's something very special, Joe Rogan. I've been listening. I mean, his podcast's been up and running for more than 10 years, I think. I've been listening to him for a long time. He's an incredibly clever interviewer. You know, he comes across at first listening as it's almost like listening to pub chat. It sounds very simple, but he's incredibly sophisticated at the way in which he's able to listen to a complex, nuanced subject and continually find different ways to keep his interviewee looking at it in different ways. It's very powerful stuff. And he has carefully, almost accidentally, built up this incredible audience of hundreds of millions of people who trust him. And they trust him because he's honest. He's curious about the world around him, and he's relentless in his willingness to interview all sorts of people from across the board, the better to understand the world around him. And because he's so big, he presents a unique challenge to those who are trying to safeguard that official narrative. Because the fact is, he's too big to cancel. He's bigger than Spotify. Were Spotify to break with him, it wouldn't matter because Joe Rogan would take his audience with him wherever he went. And so that's why you see this feverishness in those who are mounting this smear campaign against him. And it is a smear campaign. Yeah. If you've listened to Joe Rogan for any length of time, he is no racist. He's the antithesis of racist. That is absolute nonsense.
Neil, the sad thing is this is obviously getting to Joe Rogan now. And there's a lot of people saying, come on, Joe, Don't let them get you down. But when you're in the centre of this type of storm, it's very easy to feel like the whole world is against you.
Yes, it certainly is, because he is only one person, and this kind of pressure, it gets to absolutely anyone, gets to absolutely everyone. And also, as I said, I'm sure when he started out on his podcast, on the Joe Rogan Experience, he probably had no way of predicting how big it would become.
No.
So he's almost inadvertently become the Joe Rogan that he is. That's a threat to the established narrative, to the established authority. And when that machine comes after you, whoever you are, that is challenging. But we've all been there. You know, I've been in versions of it myself over the years. And the one thing that you have to not do is apologise. You cannot offer your throat to the wolf. There is no placating that machine, those people. If you roll over, they don't leave you alone. The moment you roll over is when they've absolutely got you, because it then becomes a case of them demonstrating what they can do to you when they get you down. And so whether you're the little guy or whether you're Joe Rogan with your hundreds of millions of followers, you have to hold the line. And understand that if he does hold the line, and I think he is, and I think Spotify are convincingly backing him, then he will come back all the stronger. But my point always will be, he is too big, and that is why they're going after him so hard. Because frankly, I think they know that he's too big, and his audience, which dwarfs anybody else's audience, mainstream legacy media included. His audience will go with him because they trust him and they know him, and they know that unlike any other source of information, you can listen to Joe Rogan and get the balanced view from across the board. He's unique.
No, I completely agree, Neil, but you can see how the mainstream media think they've got this guy at the moment. They think they've got him, and that's why I think your advice to Joe Rogan is very sensible. Hold firm, because they're not leaving you alone. You know, they saw that you apologised the first time, so now they're coming to you again. Neil,
yes, there's nothing. There's no point. There is nothing to be gained, because it's not about seeking an apology. That's not what they're after. When the mob goes after you in that way, if you're tricked and cajoled into offering them your throat, they'll just rip it out.
And they want one thing. They want him deplatformed by Spotify. That is what they want. And I don't think they're going to get it at this point. And I think you're right. Even if they did get that, it would actually be a boon for Joe Rogan.
This is a tipping point, I think. The relic media, the legacy media that has failed its audiences and failed its public, they know that they are on the way down. They are in their death throes. Yeah. They might look powerful, but if someone like Joe Rogan holds on, and if something like Spotify continues to back him, then the sort of legacy media that has mounted this kind of smear campaign, they will fall. I think they're in their death throes now.
And by the way, we're not going to forget the lies that we were told over the past 2 years by this legacy media, and who was one of the people not lying to us? Joe Rogan. Neil Oliver.
Absolutely.
He never lies to us. Neil, thank you so much. We'll speak again next week.
Thank you.
It's 10 p.m. This is Dan Wootton Tonight. Still to come, it's been Boris Johnson under fire for the past few weeks. Now it's his wife Carrie's turn, as she's branded controlling and manipulative. But is criticism of the so-called Carrie Antoinette sexist? High-profile names including Sajid Javid and Sarah Vine have been weighing in. And in just a moment, I'll get the thoughts of my superstar panel, the Daily Express columnist Carol Malone, social commentator Esther Kraku, and the iNewspaper's Benjamin Butterworth. As Dr. Tedros from the World Health Organization cozies up to China by attending the Winter Olympics, why is the world letting this vile dictatorship get away with chaos? Former House of Lords peer and top author Matt Ridley joins me at 10:20 to discuss that and ask why the establishment is so determined to suppress conversation about the Wuhan lab leak theory. They've already scored huge victories over vaccine passports and the cruel no jab, no job NHS mandates, but the Together declaration aren't finished yet. Their co-founder Alan Miller is uncancelled at 10:40 to tell me what the free speech champions are challenging next. Speaking of free speech, should Jimmy Carr have been retroactively cancelled over a bad taste joke at the expense of the travelling community? And should British actress Tandy Way-Newton feel obliged to apologise for not representing dark-skinned women, prompting this tongue-in-cheek response from a fellow thespian?
I'm sorry that I'm the one chosen. My mama looks like you.
I just want to apologise for every other white-skinned actor.
Plus, what on earth is the Prince of Woke going on about here?
Everyone has such busy days anyway that even if you do have that 15-minute slate of white space.
We're trying to unpick it in the media buzz. Plus, tomorrow's newspaper front pages. And we'll reveal tonight's Greatest Britain and Union Jackass. But first, the news at 10 with Polly Middlehurst.
Thanks, Dan. Your top stories tonight. The Conservative MP David Davis says the Prime Minister should withdraw his Jimmy Savile smear against the Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer after Sir Keir was mobbed outside Parliament today. Officers had to escort Sir Keir through the crowd and bundle him into a police car after a group of demonstrators accused him of protecting paedophiles. 2 people have been arrested for assaulting emergency workers during the clashes. Boris Johnson has tweeted the behaviour against Sir Keir Starmer is absolutely disgraceful. David Davis told GB News the Prime Minister should apologise.
Those demonstrations show the risk of making a frankly tasteless comment like that. Sir Keir Starmer's not guilty of anything in this respect. The Prime Minister should apologise for it and frankly he should retract it.
Well, the Prime Minister says the government is setting tough targets to reduce the number of patients currently on the NHS waiting lists in England. It follows reports the Treasury had refused to sign off on the COVID recovery plan without firmer targets. The Prime Minister insists Number 10 and the Treasury are working together now to tackle the patient backlog.
What we're doing is working together across the whole of government to fix the COVID backlogs, which, believe me, is a massive priority for us, for everybody in the country.
Boris Johnson. The Defence Secretary Ben Wallace has announced the UK is sending an additional 350 British soldiers to Poland amid continued tensions between Russia and Ukraine. The French President Emmanuel Macron has met with the Russian President Vladimir Putin in Moscow. Macron stressed that Europe and Russia needed to find a new way forward to end the standoff over Ukraine. Meanwhile, the US President Joe Biden has warned if Vladimir Putin invades Ukraine, there will be no Nord Stream 2, a crucial gas pipeline connecting Russia and Germany. Speaking at a joint news conference with the German Chancellor, Mr. Biden said there'd be severe consequences if Russia makes a move.
I think he has to realize that it would be a gigantic mistake for him to move on Ukraine. The impact on Europe and the rest of the world would be devastating, and he would pay a heavy price.
Joe Biden. Now, 3 patients paralysed after spinal cord injuries have been able to walk, cycle and swim using a nerve stimulation device. They were all able to take their first steps after neurosurgeons attached an electrical implant into their spines, which was controlled using a touch-screen tablet. The Swiss researchers hope to start a new trial of about 100 more patients next year. On TV, online and on your radio through DAB+, you are with GB News. Now back to Dan Wootton and Tonight.
Tomorrow's News Tonight now on our Media Buzz. First front pages are in, and the Metro lead with that story that we just saw there. Keir flees hate mob after Sir Keir Starmer was escorted by police away from hecklers outside Parliament. The crowd harassed the Labour leader with verbal abuse, some apparently inspired by Boris Johnson's jibe last week regarding the failure of the CPS to prosecute Jimmy Savile when Starmer was, let's not forget, Starmer was Director of Public Prosecutions at the time. Several MPs, including some Tories, have called on the PM to fully withdraw his claims. Plus a happier story there. Kate Middleton set to read a CBeebies bedtime story, and I believe it's to help mark Children's Mental Health Week. The Eye also report on the mob that hounded Sir Keir Starmer today, and they suggest that Boris faces a crunch 48 hours. They have been saying that for quite a while, though. The publication claims Tory whips have allowed MPs to be absent from the Commons this week in an attempt to avoid a quick coup, and that there are also rising tensions between the PM and the Chancellor, Rishi Sunak. Well, we have seen that. We have seen that. Rishi not being so dishy towards Boris. He's a traitor, it looks like. My superstar panel back with me now. Daily Express columnist Carol Malone, senior reporter at the I newspaper Benjamin Butterworth, and social commentator Esther Kraku. Now, as we saw there, Boris, he's had shed loads of bad press of late. But it was his wife who got it in the neck over the weekend. The former political staffer and Green activist was painted as dominating and meddling in a series of damning revelations from the upcoming book First Lady, Intrigue at the Court of Carrie and Boris Johnson, written by former Deputy Chair of the Conservatives Lord Ashcroft. Sources claim Carrie would text key figures in the now PM's leadership campaign masquerading as him, and could even be heard whispering during phone calls. She is also said to have frozen out staffers she didn't like, including Gavin Williamson's former special advisor Ellie Lyons, who Carrie allegedly took a disliking to for being, quote, more attractive and intelligent. Insiders accuse Carrie of creating a culture of fear, which extended to her, quote, emotionally disruptive relationship with the Prime Minister. A close political and personal sources quoted as saying of Boris, he could have been a great Prime Minister, but his lack of discipline, which led him to get involved with Carrie, has cost him. His potential to transform the country has been squandered, and as far as I'm concerned, it's because of her. However, Carrie has received some backing in the form of Health Secretary Sajid Javid and the ex-wife of Housing Minister Michael Gove, Sarah Vine.
It's sexist. I mean, it's why... First of all, I think the partners of politicians should be off limits. There's no... Why would you go after or attack the partners of politicians? By all means, go after the politicians, but why their wives, their husbands, or their partners? And
because they encourage them to break lockdown rules, I suppose.
Well, no, this is not what this is about. This is just about going after an individual. I actually do think there's a sexism involved in this. Going after Carrie Johnson is undignified, it's unfair, and it's just wrong.
So I think it's sort of the equivalent of political slut-shaming. I mean, the trouble is, it's always the easiest thing to do to blame the woman, and the truth is far more complicated than that. And you know, if Boris Johnson has given Carrie too much access or too much leeway, that's sort of his fault. He's the person in charge.
Carol, political slut-shaming, you don't think so?
Do you know, I know Sarah. I mean, I like Sarah Vine very much. However, that was, she said that was going to always get a headline. To me, it's nonsensical. She also said in the piece that she wrote today, it's this, doing this to Carrie, it's all about women know your place. That's hysterical nonsense. This is not about sex or about gender. It's about unelected influence, which is what Carrie has. Misogyny's got nothing to do with this. You know, people have every right to be concerned about an unelected, unqualified person with no qualifications, hiring people in Downing Street by the sound of it, firing people, and influencing policy. You know, if she were an unelected man doing this, she would get exactly the same flack. Her gender is irrelevant in all this, and Sarah Vine there is defending the indefensible and using bias against women to do it. It's nonsense. She knew that was going to get headlines. She knew that was going to.
And you're not happy with Sajid Javid there, right?
Oh, absolute nonsense what he just said. You know, he would say that, wouldn't he? Because we all know the stories about Carrie was instrumental in getting him back into Downing Street after Boris had fired him originally.
Well, Dominic Cummings fired him, really, didn't he?
Well, Dominic Cummings fired, but he was in Downing Street.
Yeah.
Carrie used to work for Sajid Javid, they're friends. So as people would say, he would say that, wouldn't he? And what has he said there? Partners should be off limits. Not if she's interfering in government policy, shouldn't be. Her sex has got nothing to do with it. She's unelected. We know she's brought people into Downing Street. 4 of her very good friends.
Allegra Stratton being one of them.
Allegra Stratton, who was the other guy, Josh Grimson, Henry Newman. And who was the guy who was called Mallet? I think he was called...
Oh, yes.
He was brought in as the election campaign manager. Totally, it was Carrie Ho totally great. He went and announced to the campaign office, I'm your new manager. Everyone laughed at him because he hadn't been appointed. Carrie had told him to go in and say that.
You know what most people are ignoring? And I don't believe it's sexism. You're completely right here. Carrie started her career in politics, as Tory press officer.
Yes.
She's always been close to people of power and influence.
Yes.
So I think it's perfectly warranted to say that she does have the ability to pull those strings. I think the fact that she's married to Boris now amplifies it, and she's definitely overstepped her boundaries. And it's very clear, like she's, gotten her close friends positions of influence as over the last 2 years in Downing Street.
Benjamin, is this political slut shaming?
Slut shaming.
Well,
That's so not.
It's a great phrase. I'm not quite sure what it really means, but look, I mean, I think there are two sides to this, because has Carrie faced some sexism when she's called Princess Nut Nut, Carrie Antoinette? Yes, I don't think people would parody a male partner in the way that they have Carrie Symonds. But actually, ultimately, I think the real reason why she's facing so much flack, and, Samantha Cameron or other, female spouses of prime ministers haven't, is because Carrie is a political operator. She wasn't just a Tory press officer. She was Director of Communications for the Conservative Party at 30 years old. Yeah. Now, you have to be a pretty sharp, a pretty quick mover to do a job like that.
There's a lot of Westminster is about who you know.
And if you look at her body language, she
knew the right person. She was straight on him.
She doesn't take a backseat at all. Whenever she's with Boris, she's hand in hand. She's very forward. She's very much at the front of the press as much as he is.
I mean, you get the impression, there was a story. This book alluded to her already before she met Boris. She was having an affair with another married MP, and that went wrong. And then she she was always asking questions about Boris. Was he single? Was he available?
I want to know who the MP is. Don't say it if you know. Don't say it if you know.
I mean, I don't think whether Boris is single or not ever made a difference.
Yeah, but it absolutely is Boris's fault in the sense that he's too weaselly to stop her doing what she's doing. There was the one quote in that book where somebody who knew said, Boris had said to him this day, please do what she says, because I'm being tortured at home. I'm going to get hell when I get home. If that's the case, he really shouldn't be Prime Minister.
Do you know what's so frustrating to me? It's like, I wouldn't mind so much if the policy she was pushing him towards was any good. No. But it's not. It's all the rubbish wokery. Yeah. It's all the net zero agenda. Yeah. It's all the backing down on what the Conservatives were elected to do, and that's what's most frustrating about it.
It's all this.
Oh, you're so wrong. Why?
But it's true. But nobody elected her for that. Nobody elected her. Period.
It does. It doesn't matter whether she's arguing for things that are your ideal.
Well, it's not about me. It's not about me. It's about the Tory manifesto that they were elected on.
It matters.
She's asking him to break his pledge with voters.
It matters that she's influencing him, not how she's influencing him.
Well, she will always influence him. That's what pillow talk is.
If she was saying things that were what you wanted to happen, it would be no better.
Well, it's not about what I want to happen. It's about what he promised to do.
But never in a court of law has pillow talk been admitted as evidence.
But also, this book is suggesting that he's mesmerised by her and that this is a Greek.
Well, he's clearly something.
I mean, if that's the case, seriously, he shouldn't be in power.
Carol, I can't imagine he's that mesmerised now. I mean, the latest report over the weekend is that his close advisors are suggesting that she moves out of the flat at number 11 Downing Street, moves to the Grace and Favour mansion down the road that Michael Gove is currently staying in. That's reserved for the Foreign Secretary, just so she's a bit away from the action. But I think you're right.
The 2-month-old baby.
I think she spends half her life in Chequers anyway.
Now, we're still waiting to hear from Prince Harry about what he thinks of Queen Camilla. There's been nothing but deathly science from Montecito on the matter so far. But we've certainly heard plenty of nonsense sound bites from the royal turned wokey. The Duke of Sussex has been paid a sizable sum as Chief Impact Officer of mental health startup BetterUp, but I'm not sure whether these pearls of wisdom are going to provide much practical help or be considered value for money. Take a listen to the absolute drivel being spouted by Harry in his latest intervention.
If you're a business leader, for all your employees as well, to go, you know what, everyone's going to have today focusing on themselves. Everyone has such busy days anyway, that even if you do have that 15-minute slate of white space, life is about discovery. And when you get to that point, my perspective, it almost feels like a superpower. I, similar to you, Alexi, experience burnout. For me, personally, it's like not constantly buffering, but it's a work in progress. I'm always kicking myself going, if you'd done this, which you know works for you, then you wouldn't be in this state now. I know that I need to meditate every single day. I would hope that everybody would be able to do that.
Seriously.
Sorry.
That is someone
just
who has
astonishing.
never
He's
held a
lost
job.
the plot.
You know what? He's modelling himself on Steve Jobs to start with. And two, what's he talking about? Burnout. He was talking about years ago, burnout from partying, because that's what he was doing there at the time he's talking about.
That is someone who has clearly never held a job in their entire life.
Do you know what I thought was astonishing last week? Him whinging all the time about, where he's at. And to look at Kate last week, on that rugby pitch at Twickenham, she's the royal family's biggest
I'm sorry.
asset right now.
You ask any ordinary Brit with two kids to all of a sudden find 45 minutes of white space. Mate, you're deluded. Get a grip. You have no idea.
We think he's watching.
Carol Malone, Benjamin Butterworth, Esther Crack, who do stand by. No, he's in his white space right now. I should imagine, Carol, and this would be the last programme he would ever watch. Coming up, should Jimmy Carr have been retroactively cancelled over a bad taste joke at the expense of travellers? My Superstar panel will have it out over that one. The next, why is the World Health Organization, aka the WHO, letting China get away with the COVID chaos they've unleashed on the world? Former House of Peers author House of Peers member and top author Matt Ridley joins me after the break.
Hello again. Cloudy skies overnight will bring outbreaks of rain to Scotland, Northern Ireland and Northern England, and act as a blanket for much of the country, particularly in the south, where it will be a mild night. A few cloud breaks are possible for central and southern parts of the UK, but even here, enough of a breeze to keep things stirred up and mild. Heavy rain pushes south across Scotland, arriving into southern Scotland, Northern Ireland and Northern England by dawn. 7 to 10 Celsius for much of England, Wales, central and southern Scotland, Northern Ireland, but for the north of Scotland, 2 to 5 Celsius. Colder here because the front has moved south, and colder, brighter weather follows for Central Belt northwards. And really through Tuesday, we're going to see further blustery showers for much of northern and western Scotland, those showers falling as snow above 300 or 400 metres. But for Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, northern England, it stays cloudy with some light outbreaks of rain on and off throughout the day. Further south again, dry with even some sunshine for the Midlands, East Anglia, southern counties of England, South Wales, 12 to 14 Celsius in places here. Staying breezy and cloudy across much of England and Wales overnight, then into the start of Wednesday. And as a result, it's going to be mild. Outbreaks of rain pushing through Wales into the Midlands. And to the north, well, clearer spells for northern England, for Scotland and Northern Ireland, but further blustery showers. And as we go through Wednesday, we're going to drag cold air in across the northern half of the UK from the west-northwest. The snow line then starts to sink lower, and as a result, we're even going to see some sleet and snow showers to low levels across the north of Scotland, but certainly snow accumulating over the West Highlands above 200 metres throughout Wednesday itself. Cloud and rain sinks south across England and Wales, with sunny spells following, and the rain tends to peter out by the afternoon as well. 12 Celsius in the south, feeling cold in the wind further north.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before. It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News. Do you know what? I've got to be honest with you. I just cannot get on board with the sickening spectacle of the Beijing Winter Olympics, with some world leaders cozying up to China under what I think amounts to a sporting smokescreen. Most Western governments, including the UK, are rightly staging a diplomatic boycott of the Games, but many others are forgetting China's persecution of the Uyghurs, the dismantling of democracy in Hong Kong, and, of course, unleashing COVID-19 on the world. China's lack of transparency over the pandemic's origin wasn't even enough to deter the Director General of the World Health Organization, Dr. Tedros, from continuing his uncomfortably close relationship with Beijing by attending the Games. And I can't say I'm particularly optimistic that he'll use his visit to put pressure on the Chinese authorities to come clean over the likely Wuhan lab leak, especially after the WHO's pathetic and controlled non-investigation in January last year that resulted in little more than exposing the fanciful Chinese theory that the virus was imported via frozen food. So why is the world so willing to let China get away with this? Well, the former House of Lords peer and author of the brilliant book Viral, The Search for the Origin of COVID-19, Matt Ridley, joins me now. Matt, you have become one of the ultimate authorities on what I believe and what I have been saying for nearly 2 years is one of the biggest cover-ups in human history. Why on earth is Dr. Tedros at the Olympics? I mean, my mind boggles.
Well, his reason for being at the Olympics, he says, is because it would be a political statement to turn down the invitation. That's a very odd thing to say, because it implies that it's a political statement to accept it. And anyway, he's not a politician, so it shouldn't be political. He's a bureaucrat. So, there are delusions of grandeur here as well. He has presided over an organization. He got elected to the head of it with Chinese support. He was a strong ally of China when he was an Ethiopian minister. He presided over, in January, a series of terrible mistakes by the World Health Organization when they said there'd been no more cases for 10 days, when they said that there was no human-to-human transmission, when they agreed with China not to call a pandemic. And he went to China that month and said that his admiration for the commitment to transparency of the Chinese regime was, quotes, beyond words. Now, this was at a time when China was already punishing and gagging both scientists and doctors and medical scientists
for talking about the outbreak at all. So there's a real issue here. As you say, the investigation that eventually happened in 2021 was a bit of a farce. It took a long time to get developed. And you see, my angle on this is that I kept asking the British government in Parliament, what is their view on where this virus came from and what are they doing to investigate that? And the answer I always got was, we're leaving it to the World Health Organization. Well, the World Health Organization took more than a year to investigate. They did so in a truly farcical fashion, basically going on a 10-day tourist trip to Wuhan, visiting a museum, going to the wrong campus of the Wuhan Institute of Virology, and so on. So the fact that they were doing that got in the way of any other countries organizing anything. And that's one of the things that disturbs me, is that, not intentionally, but in effect, the World Health Organization's role in this has been to prevent anyone else looking into this properly.
I completely agree. It's not good enough. And we've only had a few world leaders, Matt, that really have been prepared to stand up to this cover-up from China. I mean, I give a lot of credit to Scott Morrison, the Prime Minister of Australia, as one. But we saw the retaliation from China. But I feel like we cannot trust the World Health Organization. Look at the fact Dr. Tedros is there. There has to be demands now for a new independent investigation, because otherwise we are letting China getting away with potentially unleashing this virus on the world.
Well, and that's sort of why Alina Chan, a brilliant young scientist, and myself decided to put together a book, putting all the information we could find about both theories, about the possibility that it came out of a market or the possibility that it came out of a lab, putting them out in the public domain so that people could make up their own minds about this. And, frankly, we both started thinking it was probably a market spillover. It was probably a natural event. We both ended up thinking it probably wasn't, that it's, they've been unable to find, they've tested 82,000 animals in China, including in the wildlife trade, and they haven't found a single one carrying this virus. There was nothing on sale in that market that looked like it. The pangolins, which were announced 2 years ago today, turned out to be a red herring. They had a different virus in them, etc. And so, meanwhile, more and more information emerged about the fact that the biggest laboratory in the world working on this kind of SARS-like coronavirus just happens to be in Wuhan. The experiments they were doing were going very close to the edge of being unsafe. They were making chimeric hybrid viruses that were up to 10,000 times more infectious. And they were working on exactly the kinds of genes in viruses that we now know look very unusual and suspicious in SARS-CoV-2. So we need a proper investigation. Millions of people are dead. It's not good enough to say, well, we don't know, we may never know, and the Chinese are not going to help us find out. The world needs to come together, put its signatures to a treaty saying, we all agree to be transparent about this. Please sign this treaty, China, and please show us what you've found. We don't want to blame you. We want to understand what happened, because the world deserves to know. If an airliner crashes, we don't say, oh, it crashed in such and such a country, so we can't find out anything about it. We share the information from the black box with all other countries.
And the main reason that we do that is because we have to stop this from ever happening again. And unless we stand up to China, do a proper investigation, I'm afraid that it could happen again. But that's why your book is so important, Matt Ridley. Viral, the search for the origin of COVID-19. I highly recommend it, Matt. Thank you so much. Please come back again soon. I do want to blame China, though. I have to be honest. I do blame them, at least the government. Now, coming up in Uncancelled, they've scored huge victories over vaccine passports and no jab, no job NHS mandates. But the Together declaration aren't done yet. Co-founder Alan Miller joins me to reveal what's next at 10:40. But coming up in the Media Buzz, should British actress Tandy Way-Newton really have apologised for not representing dark-skinned women? Fellow actor Lawrence Fox showed he didn't think so. Find out how straight after the break.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows. Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before. It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News. Welcome back. Let's return to tomorrow's news tonight now on our Media Buzz. Lots more front pages just in, but The Guardian going with that same story that MPs from all sides have criticised the Prime Minister and accused him of whipping up political poison after the Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer was mobbed by protesters who accused him of protecting the paedophile Jimmy Savile. Of course, it's always Boris Johnson's fault, isn't it? Even the actions of protesters who he has nothing to do with. The Independent also reporting on calls for Boris Johnson to apologise for his Savile comments last week. Why? They were factual. Why? The paper also carries a photo of Team GB snowboarder Katie Muir, who at 17 years old has qualified for the final. Do you know what? I don't even care about these Winter Olympics in Beijing. I'm sorry, good on her, but I don't care about them. I'm so angry about the fact that they're taking place in China. I just have to move on from it. The Daily Telegraph reports 6 North Sea oil and gas fields could be approved this year after a pushback against Number 10's insane demands to go further on net zero. Further? How can we go further, for God's sake? Rishi Sunak, the Chancellor, has asked the Business Secretary to fast-track the licences due to fears at the Treasury about the economic impact of making the UK a net zero carbon emitter by 2050. More tension between the Chancellor and Boris Johnson's by the sound of it. The Times leads with Britain will not flinch over Ukraine, says PM. Boris is warning Putin that invading Ukraine would only strengthen NATO as he prepares to deploy Royal Marines, RAF Typhoons and Royal Marine warships to Eastern Europe. The Sun leads with what looks like an absolutely horrifying exclusive here. And remember, I'm a cat lover, so this upsets me a lot. It shows the Premier League footballer Kurt Zouma kicking his cat like a football across the kitchen. Now, The Sun has obtained this video exclusively, a warning some viewers, probably including me, will find this very upsetting. Kurt Zouma, you are a complete and utter scumbag. You do not deserve to own any pet ever again. That actually makes me physically sick as the owner of my beloved Dirk. Horrific stuff. The club has condemned Zuma's actions, says it will deal with the matter internally. Well, I am totally horrified by that. Let me bring my superstar panel back in now. Daily Express columnist Carol Malone, senior reporter at the newspaper Benjamin Butterworth, social commentator Esther Kraku. But look, let's move on, because as we saw on the front of the Times, Jimmy Carr, the latest comedian to fall foul of the cancel culture mob over a dark joke, but he's not taking it lying down. The offending gag about the travelling community and the Holocaust featured in his Netflix special His Dark Materials, which was released on Christmas Day, and began with a warning that the show contained terrible things, meaning it's taken those opposed to free speech in comedy 6 weeks to whip up the predictable media storm. Now, look, I'm not defending the contents of the joke. It was outrageous. It was off colour. I'm not a fan of Jimmy Carr. But isn't the whole point of comedians to shock and to offend and to make people laugh? Well, apparently not in woke 2022. The joke has been widely condemned, with Culture Secretary Nadine Dorries even using it to talk about her plans to outlaw offensive comedy.
Another bill that we have to come through is a media bill which we are looking at including those video on demand streaming organisations such as Netflix. We're looking at including those into the scope of that bill to make the kind of comments that Jimmy Carr made, which I believe were a year ago, also subject to a new law which will impose sanctions upon those organisations.
Fan of Nadine Dorries, but that is sounding like we are the Chinese Communist government. Jimmy Carr addressed the matter during a performance at the Whitley Bay Playhouse on Saturday night. First, he said, "The joke that ends my career is already out there." Then, when heckled by an audience member about the Holocaust, he responded, "I am going to get cancelled. That's the bad news. The good news is I am going down swinging." Esther Kraku.
He's not going to get cancelled, actually, because he didn't offend the right people.
So what, you think the travelling community...
No, he didn't offend the right people. If he made that joke about slavery or anything to do with, I don't know, certain religions that you're not allowed to criticise or anything like that, then he would be...
Well, no, I did. I absolutely thought that. I thought if he had taken out the word gypsy and replaced it with gay people or trans people, he almost certainly would be cancelled now. But Esther, look, the joke is shocking, right? But we need comedians to shock. That is their role. They're meant to make us laugh, sometimes with shocking humour. If you don't like it, don't watch it. Don't go and see Jimmy Carr. It doesn't need to be illegal. We're going mad.
You know, I always say that comedy is the most digestible form of philosophy, because once free speech goes, comedy dies with it, right? And comedy is philosophy in the sense that there is always an element of truth to it, and people can take it on a lot more easily than they can a lecture about Socrates, for instance. The issue here is not the fact that he made that joke. The issue here is the consistency of these sad people to try and cancel someone, a month, 2 months after a year. A year.
Well, the special aired on Christmas Day. I think it had been filmed a year ago. Let's go to one of those people, our Chancellor-in-Chief, Benjamin Butterworth. Where do you stand on this one, the wokest man in Britain?
You know, I think I'm going to surprise you. Look,
good.
Hold on, let me get ready for this.
Roughly speaking, the problem I have with the joke is that it's punching down, and I think when you're making fun about dark things, it should be clearer that you're mocking the evil of it, or the people that carried out bad things, or people in power. I think that's a better judgment joke. However, and I did Rob Rinder's show the other day, and he's done some outstanding work highlighting the things that happened with the Holocaust, and he said that it was appalling what Jimmy Carr had done. Actually, I think there's a real value to dark humour, because when the worst things in the world happen, jokes about them can be a way to relieve the terror of those things. Joan Rivers is my favourite comedian, and she joked about her husband's
suicide. She would have been cancelled a million times over by now.
They tried. They definitely tried.
She was cancelled, inverted commas, several times. Her career nearly ended when she joked about 9/11. It took a decade to come back. I actually think there's a great value in comedy about dark things, and I think we'd be wrong to stop doing that.
I mean, Caroline, the issue is, if you start creating all of these rules around comedy, you can talk about this, you can't talk about this, but we've defeated the whole purpose of what comedy is.
You know, who decides that a joke has gone too far? Is it a person? Is it a committee? Because we're into the realms of dictatorship when you start doing that, and that's the opposite.
Well, I think what Nadine Dorries is trying to do is positively Chinese.
Yes, I mean that's the opposite of democracy. You know, there was a comic I saw on another show I won't mention recently.
You're allowed. We don't. We can talk about other shows here. They exist.
It was on Good Morning Britain.
That's a very woke show these days, by the way. It always seems to have left-wingers hosting it.
This is when Piers was on.
Oh, fine.
And it was a guy, a comedian who had turned a gig down at the University of London because he was being asked to sign a contract before he did the gig, and this contract said it couldn't be jokes about sexism, racism, ageism, homophobia, xenophobia, trans, or religion. What's left if you don't? Right. So he just said, "No, I'm not going to do that." And I think
Benjamin, that's ridiculous.
This is what's
how
happening.
can you defend that?
Well, but hang on, I don't like jokes where they are punching down to people that sort of can't fight back.
Yeah, but you're not funny. You've got a terrible sense of humour. Like, that doesn't surprise me.
That's quite funny.
I'm quite funny. Also, you know, I often have quite a dark sense of humour, and that's why I defend Jimmy Carr in this. But I do think, you know, this idea that you need to be offensive to be funny is nonsense.
You clearly have
people like Alan Carr, probably the most popular comedian in the country. You would never hear a joke of that nature come out of his
You don't know that. You don't know that.
Well, I do, because I've seen it.
We're hurtling towards a 24/7 society that's permanently offended, and it's bringing us closer to a situation where humour is becoming distasteful.
Well, it is,
and it can't be
because
that.
Jimmy Carr is big enough to withstand this pressure. Joe Rogan is big enough to withstand this pressure. The reality is most folk are not. Now, tomorrow we'll see the announcement of this year's very woke Oscar nominations. But I think I've already found the winner of Wokest Performance by a Hollywood star. British actress Thandiwe Newton. By the way, she used to be called Tandy Newton. Now, apparently, she wants to be called Thandiwe Newton. Don't ask me why. She's the one that featured in hit TV sci-fi series Westworld and is best known for the films Mission Impossible 2, The Pursuit of Happiness, and Solo, A Star Wars Story. She had an emotional reaction as she apologised to, quote, darker-skinned actresses for failing to represent them in a recent interview. The baffling breakdown has been skewered across the internet and inspired fellow actor and Reform UK leader Lawrence Fox to issue an apology of his own. Take a look at both of them back to back.
I've wanted so desperately to apologise every day to darker-skinned actresses, to say, I'm sorry that I'm the one chosen. My mama looks like you. My mum looks like you, and it's been very painful to have women that look like my mum feel like I'm not representing them.
I just want to apologise for every other white-skinned actor with blonde hair than me. My mum was whiter than me. My dad does tan on holiday, but he's still really white.
OK, so Esther Krakow, you know what's going on with Thandiwe Newton there?
OK, so what we just witnessed was mental illness in the form of critical race theory. So Thandiwe Newton is apologising to what she calls darker skin. I believe she means the word is black actresses for not being able to represent them as a mixed race woman. Now, I find that odd because you wouldn't necessarily be represented by... Anyway, so she's apologising to black actresses for getting roles over them and for stealing their men. Now, this is part of the one-drop rule that you see in the US, where if you have any sort of black or African heritage, regardless of your other parenting, like your parentage, you are officially black. So she has internalized this, and now she feels guilty because she got roles that she believes darker-skinned women deserve. Now, she could have just turned down these roles, as some actresses have done in Hollywood, but instead she came on in the form of, manifesting her mental issues and started crying and apologising for stealing our roles and our men.
We don't know if Thandiwe Newton has mental issues. Do you understand, Benjamin, where she's coming from as Mr. Woke?
That was a slightly absurd video. I can't deny that I laughed at it. But Do you know, the question of having, minority groups better represented in film and TV is really important. And, if she's making the argument... If she's making the argument, as Esther explains, that blacker actresses don't get the job, that's a good point.
Why did she turn them down? Why did she turn them down?
First of all, she said, I wanted to apologise for so long, and then didn't. And then cried.
And then won a BAFTA. She won a BAFTA.
For the job. That is what I want.
What, so you have a white actor playing Nelson Mandela?
She could win a damn BAFTA for that performance. That's all I'll say. Esther Krakow, Benjamin Butterworth, Carol Malone, stand by, because coming up, my superstar panel will nominate for today's Greatest Britain and Union Jackass. There might be someone who already knows what it's like to be royalty among my panel's nominees. Oh, that's intriguing. But in just a few seconds, and uncancelled after victories against vaccine passports and no jab, no job mandates. Together Declaration co-founder Alan Miller joins me to reveal what the free speech champions are challenging next. That's straight after we take a look at what's coming up in tomorrow's show.
Coming up on Dan Wootton tonight, is Carrie Johnson being politically slut-shamed? That's the view of former self-proclaimed Westminster wag Sarah Vine. The Daily Mail star columnist will speak out in defence of the PM's wife live. And I'll break down the day's top headlines with my superstar panel, the Conservative commentator Kelvin Robinson, the former Daily Star editor Dawn Neeson, and the author and journalist Rebecca Reed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News.
But it's time now for Uncancelled. And this is where Britain's top commentators speak out on controversial issues without the fear of the cancel culture sweeping the rest of the media. Now, first they scored victory over vaccine passports, then they claimed victory over vaccine mandates for NHS and care stuff. So they're on a roll, folks, and the Together Declaration aren't stopping there. The British freedom fighters want to stop the government having emergency powers through the Public Health Act and the Human Rights Act to ensure that we never have to endure unnecessary lockdowns again. Well, co-founder of the Together Declaration, Alan Miller, who has done some brilliant work over this, joins me now in Uncancelled. Alan, great success stories, but it's not over for you yet. So what are you targeting now?
Well, firstly, we want to make sure that there's not a legacy of the mandates. We've written to the Trust, we've been calling them to say, we won't accept any of the residue of the idea that you're forcing any staff to take a procedure. So there's also legal backup for that if that happens. But in addition to that, we still know there's a range of things still in place. We've got vaccine passports still in Scotland and Wales. We've got mask wearing in Wales and in Ireland. We've got a situation where emergency measures have been extended in Scotland. We've got the Coronavirus Act that is going to be reviewed in March. We're saying that needs to be ended. We need basically to get back to our old normal. So we want an end to all emergency powers. We want to see no more restrictions, an end to mass testing. Kids are still not going to school because of testing. The damage to children has been enormous. We're now seeing all of the collateral damages that many people have discussed on your show, and many of us who've been opposed to these measures have talked about for some time. Now it's becoming very clear in terms of the impact to NHS waiting lists, the health of the nation, mental health, a range of areas. But very importantly as well, we should remember that the Public Health Act was the measure that was used to introduce lockdowns. A lot of people kind of confuse it with the emergency measures. They are very important that they go, that we need to have clear statutory regulations, and we should have an open parliament, not ruled by decree, so they need to go. But the Public Health Act needs to be amended to ensure that if measures ever again need to be brought in, and we don't just jettison the pandemic strategy, but if they're to be brought in, that there has to be parliamentary scrutiny, which means proper cost-benefit analysis and a discussion with the public. And then the other thing is that the Human Rights Act that's now being tabled has this very, very problematic language that says that you can supersede individual rights around the public interest. Now, that's so amorphous and nebulous, it could mean anything, right? So if you say, well, the risk to public health is so enormous that actually we know these are fundamental rights, but in this instance, we're going to jettison them, and we're saying it's unacceptable. The main thing that we're going to do, and we're very very passionate about this is that we refuse to let the public be deactivated again. We now have a very strong relationship with people around the UK who have mobilised, who've let their MPs know where they are, have put them on notice in terms of where they stand on things that elected representatives need to hear from them. We've got hundreds of thousands of people around the UK. And as a public, we're saying that we need to have a full public inquiry that assesses and evaluates the impacts, the damages, the decisions that were made, policy decisions. We heard a lot about following the science, but policy decisions, that we have a national public debate about it that's televised, and that we are going to present that to ensure that there's a record and that it doesn't just get fudged and get put away in some back office for some civil servants, but we, the public, are from now on never going to go away. So the Together Declaration, its main goal now is to make sure that the public is heard and that we don't get treated with contempt and disdain and just have measures by stealth.
No, you're completely right, Alan. And I think, finally, the thing that what you've done proves is that we've been let down by democracy over the past couple of years. So actually, people need to mobilise in a different way. You know, we see it with the convoys right now in Canada. We see it with the Together Declaration here in the UK. There's a different type of people power that is going to be necessary in order to ensure that some of this tyranny imposed on the world doesn't happen ever again.
Well, and I think it's really important to acknowledge the achievements and say well done to everyone in Britain. In England, we got rid of the mandate. That's a remarkable thing. Like a month ago, that was not on the agenda. And people in Australia and Canada were saying to us, if you manage to do this, that will be remarkable. Now we've already seen a discussion in America. They've had a look at what's happening in England and the UK. They're saying, hey, perhaps this is time to move on now. These things have a domino effect. Also, other people bravely stood up. People like NHS staff, NHS 100K. The unions and the opposition never really represent.
We have to become a leading light for the world now, and I so appreciate the work that you have done. Alan Miller, the co-founder of the Together Declaration. Of course, we will be keeping up with everything you do as it goes on. But time now to reveal today's Greatest Britain and Union Jackass. My superstar panel is back. Carol Malone, your nominee for Greatest Britain today.
I'm not going to win because I know what he's got, so I know that's going to win. But I'm going to say...
That's cheating.
So
I didn't tell her.
So I'm going under the radar. So I'm going to say Priti Patel, who came up with this incredible thing. She's decreed that every police force in the country now has to investigate every single burglary. And that's after an experiment in Manchester, Northants and Bedfordshire, where forces did exactly that. And guess what happens? Detection rates trebled and offences were halved. Who knew? Send a copper out to get some evidence and he gets a conviction. That should be happening everywhere. No.
Benjamin Butterworth, your nominee.
My nominee for Greatest Britain is Her Majesty the Queen. She celebrated her 70th accession day, 70 years on the throne. And, I think it's fair to say when you look at so many of the royals that seem to have no self-control, she's shown exceptional service to the country. And I think that's why she's popular left and right.
Self-control, I think we can all agree. Esther Krakow, your Greatest Britain nominee.
My Greatest Britain, even though he's not British, is Joe Rogan.
We'll take him.
Yes.
We'll take him. Well, look, all great nominations, actually. I could have picked all three of these, but of course, we can't look past the Queen, who has now spent 70 years on the throne. She is our Greatest Britain this Monday. Union Jackass time. Carol Malone, I like yours, I think.
Mine's Emily Maitlis. She's making a mockery of the BBC's position as a state broadcaster. Her arrogance is harming the BBC, as with all the other presenters who impose their political views on us.
As we discussed at the start of the show, I am with you on that. Benjamin Butterworth, your nominee.
Mine is Kirsty Allsop.
Why?
The aristocratic multimillionaire who told young people in this country, if only you cancel your Netflix, you'll be able to buy a house. Well, Kirsty...
that isn't what she said.
Not what
$5.99.
You were at the height of disinformation with that nominee, and I don't actually have time to unpick all of the falsehoods that you've just told around Kirsty, given some very sensible advice. But anyway, we'll come to it another time. Esther Krakow, your Union Jackass nominee.
My Union Jackass. Are you ready for this?
Yes.
My Union Jackass is... Oh, I can't remember. Oh, my God.
Oh, come on.
Who was it? Oh, Sandy Newton. Sandy Newton for her ridiculous video.
That woman we just spoke about.
I know. Sorry, I just had
all sorts of trouble.
I was so ready. Yeah, Sandy Newton for her. You know what? Black women, we forgive you, Sandy. We do. That was just unnecessary and ridiculous. But yeah.
Yeah, she was ridiculous, but I'm actually going to go with Carol Malone on this one. Emily Maitlis is making a fool of the BBC, and she must be called out for it. What a fabulous superstar panel today. Carol Malone, Benjamin Butterworth, Esther Kraku. Thank you so much. I'll be back again tomorrow from 9 p.m. Thank you for your company tonight, though. Right now, it is time for headliners, though. Good night.
Hello again. Cloudy skies overnight will bring outbreaks of rain to Scotland, Northern Ireland and Northern England and act as a blanket for much of the country, particularly in the south, where it will be a mild night. A few cloud breaks are possible for central and southern parts of the UK, but even here, enough of a breeze to keep things stirred up and mild. Heavy rain pushes south across Scotland, arriving into southern Scotland, Northern Ireland and Northern England by dawn. 7 to 10 Celsius for much of England, Wales, central and southern Scotland, Northern Ireland, but for the north of Scotland, 2 to 5 Celsius. Colder here because the front has moved south, and colder, brighter weather follows for Central Belt northwards. And really through Tuesday, we're going to see further blustery showers for much of northern and western Scotland, those showers falling as snow above 300 or 400 metres. But for Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, Northern England,